Hello and welcome to Current Wave. I'm your host, Ayla Wayman, and in this podcast, we meander through our shared delusions and stumble into ethereal shit talking as we dive into the waves of the human experience. I'm so grateful to have you here. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope that you enjoy the ride. Hello, and welcome to episode 3 of Current Wave. I'm very excited to have today's guest on, my friend Amanda. She is a beautiful human and friend and shares a little bit of her views and knowledge, and she really is such a well and a resource in the spiritual realms, in astrology, human design, gene keys. She really has done so much exploration and work and study herself, and it's been really fun getting to know her. We share a little bit about, we share exactly how we met and the beautiful synchronicities and ways that we were led to one another. And it's just been a really fun friendship. Lots of 10-minute voice notes exchanged back and forth over the last few months, and it's really beautiful to have friends in this way. I tell her all the time that I just feel so grateful to be in this season of my life where so many of my friends and acquaintances are female entrepreneurs who really are carving their own paths and taking really big leaps and are on this I really think being an entrepreneur is such a spiritual path. It really has you confront a lot of parts of yourself, a lot of light and a lot of shadow and a lot of blocks, and I think it's one of the best ways to kind of just break through your limiting beliefs, your limiting self-concepts, the way you see yourself, and to really expand into who you're meant to be. And so I feel so grateful to be really surrounded by so many women who are doing this. Truly, a lot of my closest friends are on this path. And it's just a beautiful exploration and something that I think Amanda and I speak to in various ways in this conversation. The way that each of us are meandering on our soul's path and how we can see this in our various charts and how we can navigate these paths and our challenges and our strengths with more and more ease and grace. So I'm so excited to have her as the guest on this episode. I hope that you enjoy. Please go ahead and follow Current Wave on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening. If you wouldn't mind rating, reviewing, and sharing this with a friend, it helps so much. I just want to extend this listening experience to anyone who you think would enjoy it. And yeah, thanks so much for being here. Enjoy this episode. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Current Wave. I'm so excited for our guest today, who is someone who has become a really great new friend, and I'm so excited to have her on, Amanda Barnett, and she is just a wealth of wisdom and knowledge. Yeah, I want to have you introduce yourself too, but I will start by just saying you do so many different things that all really come together. I think embodied human design, astrology, gene keys, and yeah, it's been so fun getting to know you and have so many different conversations that go so many different directions. And I'm so grateful to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, we've shared a lot of voice notes over the past many weeks. It's always so hard to introduce yourself as a multi-passionate person, which a lot of people reserve for manifesting generators, but I don't think that's true. Many of us are multi-passionate. Um, yeah, I have a business called Barney and Flo, and I mostly filter like my vast toolbox through um, human design and astrology and the gene keys as like a lens for kind of curating personal support. But like many of us, I have certifications in breathwork and Reiki and yoga and trauma-informed nervous system support and the emotion code. I mean, like you could just like go on and on and on and on. But yes, my main jam is filtering all of that through a very personalized, curated, what is good for each individual person, utilitarian, how can we like apply all the things rather than just learn the things
Mm.
lens. Because I almost said I'm a recovering book hoarder, but I'm not recovering. I'm still fully in my book hoarding world. But I'm trying to get more into the like doing the thing rather than just reading about the thing, because I think many of us can get into those places. So that's a little.
Totally. I love all of that. Thank you. I know I love that you brought that tangible piece in at the end because, right, it's like I think it's easy to have a lot of knowledge in your brain, and sometimes I think I'm like doing a practice because I'm thinking about it. It's not the same at all. Um,
Yes,
I have
exactly.
to apply the tools and practice the tools. But that's yeah, amazing. Yeah, so we recently met, which I feel like there is this little thread of serendipity in that I really like. Because it's kind of like I love that I had a photo of you on my phone from like 6 months ago. That's like the funniest thing of all of it to me. Um, but yeah, um, I was hosting a retreat, co-hosting a retreat with Siri Rishi and my mom, Jessica Wayman, and a friend posted it on her Instagram, and Amanda followed her. And I would love if you would share that little moment because it was kind of like random.
It was random. It was really curious because I don't like it was my first retreat. Like it's not something that I like do all the time. I'm like not super comfortable being in other people's long-term containers. I'm not gonna lie. Like I'm more like I'm holding the space. It's like not as easy for me to be like, I'm gonna go and I mean, I'm total student of life and everything I do. Like, I don't consider myself an expert at anything. Like I'm always learning. But there's something about a retreat and like going and being the participant that is like a little uncomfortable for me. But I was like calling it in. Like I was like, I want to go on a retreat. Like I was like determined. And I had really been like, I mean, I practice Kundalini. So that was like something that I was open to. I really wanted to go to Colorado because um, I work with astrocartography too, and I have Jupiter, which we're going to talk about, in detriment in my chart, but I'm having a year where I've had better access to Jupiter than I normally do, and Colorado is on my Jupiter line. And so I was like, I want to go to a retreat here, like in Colorado or Wyoming or Montana, and like be on that line. And I was like, kind of just calling it in, and it had not happened. And then I woke up in the middle of the night. I had like a little splenic hit that was like, you should look at this person's Instagram stories about that retreat in Texas. Because there was another retreat coming up in Texas that I had
Right.
been contemplating whether or not I wanted to submit myself as a leader in that retreat,
And I was thinking of going to that retreat.
which is so funny. And then I got on this person's story, and that moment, which I think is the only time she posted it, she
Just
had
once
posted
on
about
a
your
story, which
retreat.
is only live for 24 hours, right?
Yeah. And I was like, I mean, it's literally like 1 o'clock in the morning. Like I reach over and grab my phone and I'm like looking at her stories, being like, what am I supposed to see? And that's the retreat. And so I totally got this like, sacral light up that was like, oh, this is it, but I have an emotional authority in human design. So I like emailed Ayla a couple questions and I was kind of like sitting with it and making sure, but it was like the things that I wanted. Like I wanted, let's be real. I like 90% wanted to go on retreat because my Virgo-ness, my Virgo North Node, like not wanting to adultness was like, I just want someone to cook for me. And Ayla made the most incredible food. Like it was so hard for me to go back to making food for myself after that. But yeah, it was like totally random. And then, you always have, I'm like pretty intuitive about people. Like I can tell almost immediately if someone's going to be like someone that's going to stay in my life or I'm just like crossing paths with them. And I
Yeah.
felt like a pretty instant connection with you. And then, yeah, we've been messaging since. And the other day she messaged me and she was like, oh my God, I've had your photo in my phone for like 6 months without knowing you because I co-led an event in Austin like last summer, maybe. I don't even remember when it was. I'm terrible at time. Um, with like a mutual friend of a mutual person that you work with. So,
Yeah, it was so funny. And I had no idea because I didn't know you yet. And one of my clients had sent me this photo because she was doing a workshop with one of the women who co-hosted, whatever, it doesn't matter the details, but there was this photo of Amanda, and I was looking through my history with my client after we had met. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've had this photo of you on my phone for months, which is, I don't know, there's just something like very funny about that. And yes, I even just emailing, I was like, I feel like there's like something here in our synergy, which is funny that you can feel that over email, but you can.
you can, it's true.
And also not a surprise at all. But I loved that. And then we also had another little serendipitous rendezvous in Santa Fe, which I loved. I loved. And yeah, I kind of want to get into that too.
That actually happened as a result of your mom. Because your mom messaged me and was like, I was still traveling through Colorado and I was literally thinking maybe I'll just go back because nothing's popping up that
Yeah.
that for me that I wanted to do. And then her mom messaged and said, "Hey, these people are like looking for a dog sitter in Santa Fe for a while." And I was like, "Oh, I'm not going to be here then." But then I thought, why haven't I not been looking at Santa Fe dog sits? Like, because I've been traveling doing dog sitting because it's cheaper and I really miss my dog, but I haven't like gotten another dog yet. And I found this sit that was like the exact dates I was looking for at the top of a mountain in New Mexico by myself with two wolves and like went right up to the time I was supposed to be in Tahoe. It was like total magical. And then Ayla came through and her car broke down and we got to spend like extra time going having like dinners and
Oh,
going to hot springs and like doing all the fun things. So yeah,
that's
again, it was like total magic.
so funny. Yeah, and that kind of leads me into where I want to start with this conversation because kind of in this time when you were in Santa Fe, you did this post about bridge manifestations. And I just thought it was so like there's something so simple in that and often overlooked, which I think is what you were saying. You were like, sometimes you're on these stepping stones toward what you're really calling in. And we're so focused on that big goal sometimes that we're not looking around and seeing, like, oh, wow, I'm also calling in all of these things. I would love to hear kind of like how that showed up for you in that situation and just your general thoughts on bridge manifestations and like the path.
Yeah, so I left Portland, or I lived on the West Coast for 20 years in Los Angeles and then Portland, Oregon. I'm originally from Texas. And I left Portland in 2020 and it was the first time that I ever like left somewhere and was like, I don't know where I'm going. I've always like leapt towards something, and that's been for me moving to four cities that I'd never been to before I moved to them. Like I'm definitely a jumper. That's my Aries moon, and I've learned through my human design that sometimes too impulsive because my 2-4 likes a little foundation first. But it's been my habit, and in Portland in 2020, I was like, I can't be here anymore. I can't, like, this is not where I'm supposed to be. When I moved there, I was 35 and I was like, this is the last time I'm moving. Like, it's so hard to move on your own as an adult. And at the time, my partner almost moved with me, but then I ended up going by myself, which was totally fine. I mean, I planned to go by myself. Then I almost got back together with someone and he almost went with me. And then I went by myself. But it was very hard to like be on my own. And I was like, I'm not moving again after this. But then I started learning about astrocartography and why that place just did not feel right for me to put down my long-term roots. And it just felt like I needed to go. And I thought, I'm going to travel for a few months and figure out where I want to live next. And here we are in 2024. I'm about to hit my 4 year mark of being nomadic. And that is not something I ever anticipated. It's not something that really serves my design. Like, I really need to be rooted somewhere. So it's hard for me to be like, liminal so much. I mean, I have an anchor. I come back and stay with family in Texas in between trying to figure out where I want to be. But, it's been 4 years of Airbnbs and 4 years of traveling around and trying to find things and like knowing and getting closer and closer to what I want. So, like, to like
Yeah.
getting the information that leads me to like know having more information about that. And I lost my dog 2 years ago. So I've kind of been in this weird space where I've been like not quite ready to get another animal, but like really missing that connection. I have a whole post about pets and human design and astrology. And I'm like, I tick every box for like having a pet in your life. Like I'm just like supposed to have animals. And I've been like, I know that I want to live outside of a city, but I want to be like close to access. I'm a markets environment and human design, so it doesn't serve me to be like out in the middle of nowhere and not have access to things. But I really like being in nature and like having privacy and like being able to sunbathe in my yard naked if I want to. Like I just like to have like those kinds of things, but then I like to be able to like get down to the city. And so there was this moment where I was walking these wolves through the arroyo in New Mexico, where I was like, holy shit, Amanda, you are in the exact situation you've been asking for. Is it your house? No. Is it like the perfect house? No. Are these your dogs? No. But I had like an incredible bond with these animals. And I was like on the top of a mountain by myself, hiking outside my front door, which is what I want, but like 20 minutes from Santa Fe and access to everything I could possibly need or want. And I just stood there thinking, just because this isn't mine, like it doesn't look exactly like I think it's supposed to look, doesn't mean I didn't create this scenario that I'm not. And I do think like those kinds of things, one, not only does it show you that you are creating, and that sometimes we need to be like a little clearer in what we want, but at the same time, like I don't even know if I want to own a house, to be honest. Like I don't know what kind of responsibility I want. My like prosperity sequence and my gene keys is like simplicity. I do like having flexibility and simplicity and like, but I do want my own space and my own things. That's very markets and preferences. But it was still like, this is so close to what you've been calling in. Like, honor that and like be grateful for it and like use this as like information to refine more of like what you desire and what you do want. So yeah, it was really beautiful. And I'm super grateful. And I don't think we notice those things often enough. I think we're looking for something that looks like exactly the way we quote unquote think it should look based on what we're trying to call in. And sometimes we get exactly what we need instead of necessarily, maybe this isn't the right time for me to buy a house and like pick where I'm going to be, but I'm
Yeah,
like getting a taste of what I want along the way.
totally. Yeah, I just loved that post and I loved that sentiment because I think it's just super true. And as you said, it kind of like reinforces that knowing that we can create things and that we are creating things and just gives us appreciation for the path and like where we are and noticing, oh yeah, there's so many elements of what I'm calling in already. And even just like reorienting toward that and focusing on what is working and what we are creating is always to me much more beneficial for like the energy field and how you're showing up in like a positive way, in an appreciative way, with gratitude and like also just awe and wonder of like, oh my gosh, wow, like that moment that you had of being like, wow, I'm really in so much of what I'm calling in. And it's like that stepping stone. It might not really be the full thing or like the long-term thing, but
Yeah, I think so much of manifestation is like amplification, you
Mm,
know? It's like, what are we amplifying? And if I'm in that moment going, yeah, but it's not my house and they're not my dogs and it's not my blah, 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 whatever, then that's creating something. But if I'm in that moment of being like, fuck, like this is like, this is magic. And this is actually what I've been calling. And like, how can I amplify this energy that I'm already in, even in like tiny, small ways that it's showing up? That's how we get closer to the thing that is more and more and more resonant, you know?
totally. And just being able to feel good in that process, right? Like it's such a moving target. Also, as we know, like desire, it just, you get the thing and then you're on to the next thing. But if we can really settle into what's happening and be more present with it and like amp up all of the joy and appreciation, it just is more fun. Like, why not? Most, it's very like cliche, but it's very true of
Mhm.
like being on the path and really wanting our lives to be rich and full as they are and as we're working toward our visions and goals. Yeah, I think this kind of leads into the next little bit of info that I want to kind of dive into more into astrology and charts and different things because I also am really interested in I think that like I don't know. I'm still learning. I'm very much a beginner learning about astrology. Um and obviously some people have these really beautiful optimal charts and we all have challenges and challenging placements or planets in detriment or like something going on, very difficult aspects. There's so many ways that charts can be they come in all different ways. So I'm really curious about this for myself and just like thinking about life through the lens of astrology. Yeah, I'm really curious about the role of challenges in our charts. And I know that you've told me and shared with me that you have a challenging chart and I think that I have a few challenges in my chart. And then every time I have a reading, someone's like, oh my gosh, your chart's amazing. Like, this is so beautiful. This is so cool. You have so many placements that are so powerful. Like, I have Jupiter in my second house. And so people kind of really focus on that and they're like, oh, like finances and things are going to be so easy for you. However, it's in detriment. And so there's like, a whole story and there it's aspected in a certain way. Like there's this whole thing and even really like good astrologers, I think will not necessarily address all of those pieces. And of course, it's really complicated. It's actually not easy to address a chart in like 1 hour and give someone a reading. So I understand that. But I'm really interested in like the tough places and how we learn to move through them. And yeah, I would love to hear sort of just how you think about challenges in a chart and maybe speaking to your own chart if you feel comfortable and like yeah, how we can be with that and how it might impact someone's way of being in the world.
Yeah. I had a similar experience. Like I would get readings. So I backdoored into astrology through human design. And I've been studying human design for about 10 years. So I kind of like started breaking into astrology more as I wanted to understand human design deeper and deeper. But similarly, like especially in my 20s and early 30s, I would have astrological readings, not really knowing what they were talking about, but just, like going and getting a reading and see what they say. And I got similar things like, oh, you're going to have so much success in film and you're going to blah, 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 like all these things. And I was like, wow, this is like not my felt experience, but it sounds really great.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I do have places where I am very blessed and like I've had a lot of luck with work and finding cool jobs and like I worked in the NFL and then I got a job my second day in Los Angeles for 20th Century Fox. Like I have places where I've been blessed and I recognize that. Um, but I was also always struggling with my health. Like I always had like the kind of like autoimmune, like what is going on? Like we don't really understand why you're having all these symptoms kind of things. And then I was always kind of struggling with like having like doing what I want to do and also making an abundant living at it. And you know what? Some of my teachers will say that's not possible for a chart like mine. They'll say, like, you're either going to pick one, you're going to like go and be abundant, or you're going to do what you love, and it's not going to be both.
Mm,
And that's the thing. Like, I try to find somewhere in the middle between some of the harshness of traditional Hellenistic astrology, because I do think we have agency. And the way that I see charts is that it's scaffolding, like my chart wrote an outline for my life. And like lots of things happened in my early development that set up subconscious programming and limiting beliefs. And I get to either like keep going down that pathway
mhm.
or I get to rewrite the ending to my story. I really do believe that I have agency. But
Yeah.
I've also like seen a lot of manifestation coaches and things who are like, well, if you're not getting the thing that you want, then you're just not manifesting it right. And it's like we talk about the intersection of privilege in a lot of ways in society, but we don't talk about the intersection of someone's astrological chart. And like some of us are just starting at a different starting line than other people. And sometimes that's just in one area of your life, like one major area of your life. And sometimes it's in multiple major areas of your life. And I think a lot of astrologers will avoid saying, like, oh, this is a little bit tough, or like, there's going to be some delays here, or some inconsistencies here, or this might be a little bit harder for you to like figure out, because they don't want to say like something quote unquote bad, which I don't really see it that way, but that's how a lot of people think about it.
Yeah.
But they're doing you a disservice, because what I see when I tell someone they're a projector or they have this planet in detriment, or like they're like, we both have Jupiter and Virgo, like I was always like, why am I not detoxing the way that everybody else detoxes? Like, why do I always have to work on my liver? Like, I haven't really even drank alcohol in the past 10 years. Like, I do so many things. Like, why do I have to work so hard?
Yeah.
What's wrong with me, that I'm not doing this right? Well, nothing's wrong with me. My liver has multiple testimonies in my chart that it's like a weak link for me.
Mm.
I have the ruler of my midheaven in detriment. So career has taken longer for me to figure out and to like actualize the abundance and have both of those things. Um, I have three planets in detriment. So half my houses are ruled by planets that are like a little bit of a struggle bus, and I'm about to be 45 next month. So a lot of these things work out as we get older if we have attention and intention and we bring awareness and we like figure out how they uniquely want to be channeled. But telling someone, "Oh, you have an amazing chart," and not addressing any challenges is like really not serving that person.
Yeah. I think it causes just a lot of frustration. You're like, well, I was told that this is going to be great. And yeah, finance is going to be easy because Jupiter is there. And there's just there's so many layers to it. And if you don't know that, it can be like, well, it should be working. I think there's so much of that when you're on a healing path and a spiritual path and you're doing a lot of work and it just feels like things aren't moving. I think there can be, right, like more context to that can sometimes be found in a chart of any kind. And it really can be used as a map forward, which is kind of what I'm really interested in all of my areas, right? Like learning to work with these energies because as you said, like we do have agency and there are ways, even in challenging aspects or placements or in detriment, to kind of move through that. And Yeah, I'm super curious about it, especially having like Jupiter in detriment, because that's usually a planet that everyone kind of focuses on. I mean, it really is the synergy of the whole chart and looking at all of it. But people are always like, oh yeah, Jupiter and having a lot of pressure on that planet to perform in a really particular way that I also think is being, you know, it's kind of changing in the way that people speak about it on social media and things as like just expanding good things. Like it's really put in a positive light, but it's really just it expands things that it touches, and that can go in a lot of different directions.
Mhm.
But yeah, we've been in a little inquiry about about Jupiter and its exaltation too in Pisces, which is really
In
or
Cancer.
sorry, in Cancer. I was like, wait, that's not right.
Yeah.
In Cancer.
Yeah, it's interesting to try to like break them down. I mean, I think it's really about like all of the energy just wants to find its pathway, you know, like none of it wants to be ignored. It all wants to be honored. And sometimes that means like honoring it in a little bit of a different way than someone else might honor it. You know, I did a reel recently about my Venus and Scorpio because I was like sitting at a table and I have a lot of like I have a couple of skull tattoos and a snake, and I have a scarab beetle. And this woman looked at me across the table and she goes, and I've watched her look at it many times with that look that's like, why the fuck would she put that on her body? And she looked at me and she goes, what possessed you to get an insect tattoo? And so I recorded this reel about it because I have Venus in Scorpio, and that means the way that I express femininity is very different. And for me, it's always been like combat boots with a dress or like some way that I can kind of like shake it up a little bit. And it's not so, I mean, I have my moments of like, you know, dressing up and being in the classic feminine expression. But then I went and tattooed like a scarab beetle and skulls on my arms so that even when I'm doing that, there's still like this edge to it,
Yeah.
you know? And that's like totally my Venus and Scorpio. So it's like we all find those pathways to like honor that energy because that's all it really wants is for you to be like, okay, this is like a bit unique for me and how do
Mhm.
I want that to show up in my life? And also, in that post, I think I shared one of Stephen Forrest's quotes, which was like something like a planet in rulership is like a dinner guest who's never been questioned. And it's like,
Mhm.
which one do you want? Like, what's more
Yeah.
interesting? Someone who has these paradoxical placements that they're like figuring out and like existing in kind of unique ways, or someone who's like walking down the same line as the sign? You know, I think it's more interesting actually, but it doesn't come without its challenges, especially early on.
Totally. I love that. Yeah, we kind of have touched on this conversation before, and we were talking about how, yeah, the challenges I think are harder early on, and then you do learn to work with them, especially if you kind of are interested in these tools. I think it opens up new ways of seeing this energy and learning to work with it. But even I think if you are completely oblivious to astrology or human design or any of these tools, I think you still find your way as you grow and like find what works for you and what doesn't, and how you move through the world. And if you're paying attention to your own patterns in any way, I think doors do open. But yeah, I mean, I'm really interested. I'm just fascinated in this. I think like as someone who does a lot of different work and has been like trying to manifest certain things for 10 years that haven't come through, right? And it's honestly such a gift, I think. Like I have started to think of having a challenging placement as this, yes, as you said, it's just like this different way of learning how to move with energy. And it really like builds so much resilience and like a different skill set that you would never have developed if you weren't looking at that part of your chart. As you said,
Yeah.
with a planet in rulership, like you're just going. There's not a lot of like thought or attention. And kind of like the other side of that, once one starts to develop some of these skills or knowledge or ability to work with that energy. I'm really curious about, some of the gifts that you see with that or have experienced for yourself.
Yeah, I think, I think it's, well, part of it has started with like what I know, what it's information it's offered me about like what I need to overcome. Like I
Yeah.
do think um I think Jupiter and Virgo is like there's so many beautiful expressions of that. Like I said, Jupiter rules my midheaven. I've got Jupiter in the third house of like communication and teaching and learning. So like I've got my midheaven in the ninth house of like astrology and human design and these like big concepts. So a big part of how that has manifested for me, especially in the past 10 years of my life, is that I took my coaching business into this human design astrology place, into these big concepts and like teaching them in manageable bites, which is so Virgo. I take these like big ideas and then I pull threads and I weave things together and I teach them in like these nuggets that people can actually digest. That's a beautiful gift.
Yeah.
Um, but with the manifestation piece, it's like realizing that Jupiter, this big, expansive, I can have anything energy in Virgo that's like, no, you can't, is like a lot of mental programming that needs to be overcome, like limiting beliefs, conscious and subconscious, that are kind of like getting in the way of what is possible. And so even that, like I do a lot of EFT because I know that my mind gets in the way, that I like have the limiting beliefs. And that's part of the scaffolding, right? The scaffolding that was set up at a young age and through my own programming and through my chart. And then if I go through life and I'm just like stick with those beliefs, then I will keep manifesting the same thing. So it gives you like information about what the thing is that you need to like move through to
Mhm.
actualize the big blessings as well, I think, which is super helpful. And then I think, and just having Jupiter in detriment does not necessarily mean you'll have liver issues. Jupiter rules the liver, but I have multiple testimony in my chart. It's not just that. It's like Jupiter's conjunct my North Node, which is actually beautiful for a lot of things, but like brings not good liver support. Um, and it's in mutual reception with my sixth house. Like there's just like a lot of stuff going on. Like when I mentioned earlier that I have a lot of confusing things, I've got Neptune in my sixth house, which Neptune is like brings the veil over whatever house it's, residing in. So understanding that has been huge for me too, because
Mhm.
it's understanding that I'm not doing anything wrong. It just needs extra support. And like I need to be tending to that all the time. And, it's not just that it's my liver, it's that your liver in Chinese medicine is the organ of anger. And my not self theme in human design is frustration. So if I'm like just perpetuating frustration in my life and resentment and irritation because things aren't moving forward the way that I want, or I'm not seeing what I want, then I'm just staying in this vicious cycle. But like working with my liver is another way that I can like release the stuff, the like static and stuff that's like getting in the way of the big manifestations. Did that answer your question or did I go off on like a
Well,
random?
I loved that. No, that was so beautiful. And I think that I love how you tied it together at the end of just like, there's so many ways to move through these things, and like using the body as part of that is such a big thing. Like we are here in the physical world. These planets do correspond to organs. The organs correspond to emotions. Like there's so many maps that you can learn and draw up and explore and see what resonates and what works, and using those to really move things, right? Like supporting your liver is going to support manifestations and like creating things, just creating your life, where that might not be true for everyone. It could be like a different part of the body, or that could be a place that's more easeful. And I just think that's really beautiful and helpful. And yes, I also have a lot of liver challenges as well. I have Neptune in my sixth house, and I have Jupiter in detriment, as we have discussed. And I'm also really tuning into that energy for me and like how I'm like feeling those Virgo parts of me constraining the expansive parts. I get really expansive ideas and downloads. And Jupiter is also square my sun, which is in Gemini. So I think there's like this mental downloading thing, and then it gets expanded with Jupiter. And then Virgo's like, shoot, okay, how are we going to do it? It needs to be a list. It needs to be like this and this and this. And like, I'm really feeling this process. That's just how my system goes through information. But I'm like, oh, wow. What if I like wasn't holding it in sort of such a, it has to be a certain way of like the step by step sort of Virgo perfection and like way of looking at things that are more systematic, which I also love. It's also super useful. But I'm starting to feel that tension with like, oh, I get an idea, I want it to expand, I get really excited, and then I'm like, kind of shut it down. And just I'm in a place of just really observing that energy right now. I'm not sure
Yeah.
what I will do with it, but it's powerful to have the knowledge and be able to work with it.
Yeah, I think Jupiter and Virgo can also be about, you know, figuring out the way in which we take this big abundant blessing energy onto the earth plane, because Virgo is
Mm.
so much about that. And I also think as much as it is about like finding, its own unique expression and sometimes subtler pathway,
Mhm.
uh there can also be benefit in like the salve, which is the other side of that. Like, what energy can I bring in from Pisces, that will help balance out the expression where Jupiter's happier and like more resourced? Like, what are some of those qualities I can integrate? Because the reality is, we're trying to get to the higher vibration of everything, to the higher octave of the expression of all the signs, and we carry all of them. So we can also like look at how the other sign can help. And I really love if people pull their charts and look at their terms. Like, I think that's such an interesting, because it's like Jupiter is in Virgo, and if we think of Virgo as like the CEO of the house, he's like the tippity top of the pyramid of what you're going to have to like get through him. But
Mhm.
the terms, the Egyptian terms, whatever term Jupiter's in, um, is like the direct boss. So it's like, what does the direct boss want can also be helpful to know, rather than always looking at the sign. Like, how can I filter it through? Because my direct boss will like smooth things over with the CEO if I like get out of line. So what does that planet need? If it's Mars, like, does it need me to like be courageous and take risks? Or um, if it's Jupiter and it's in its own terms, then it's like that's a helper, even though it's in Virgo, the same way that like the mutual reception thing is like a little bit of a helper, which I do have with my Jupiter and Mercury are in mutual reception between Sagittarius and Virgo. So that's like a little bit of a trading places,
Yeah.
like in my bestie's house, even though it's like a little uncomfortable, but my bestie like stocked it with some snacks and like knows a little bit of what I need. And so there's like a little bit of help there, which I think we can get from the terms as well.
Yeah, that's true. It's right. And that's like why, to me, it's so, to anyone who really starts to study this, you're like, you can barely you can't look at anything alone because none of it works alone.
Yeah.
And it's really helpful and supportive because there is always a path and there is always support and everything's always speaking to each other in some way. So I think that it's just being more nuanced, I think, in the way that we speak about it and the process. And it really is so different for everyone else. And that leads me into sort of this next section that we've really been touching on in a lot of different ways. But a few weeks ago, you led a really beautiful workshop about redefining success. And I think that that is a lot of the work that you do that I've encountered so far. It might be just kind of this season that you're in with that. And I think that as we're talking about the way that we came into this world with this soul map of our chart and having these different things that are, I think, like these parameters that I do think we can adjust and shift and move into that higher octave that you were speaking of in all areas of our lives. And like some people, I think that in our society, like being rich and famous and presenting in a certain way has sort of historically, I think it's shifting, which is really exciting and cool, has been this pinnacle of what success looks like. And it really just doesn't serve the collective. And it also doesn't serve us individually because we each have our own mission here. And we've been sort of fed this very narrow lens of what that looks like. And I would love if you could speak more to that and sort of your process and offerings around that.
Yeah, it was funny because I have this membership, and then like last year, around the end of last year, it started coming through that I wanted to like go deeper and like establish. I thought it was going to be a whole other program, but no, it's the second tier because I like couldn't separate it. It just it feels weird. Um, and it came through Sacred Success Codes, and I was like, really? I want to call it success. I don't know because I've had like a issue with like I definitely like with my Mercury and Sag, like get attached to like the words that people use, and like
Mhm.
purpose has had its moment recently. Like when I first started doing readings, it was like everybody wanted to know their purpose. Like, what's my purpose? And everybody thinks their purpose is like, I'm meant to be a nurse, or I'm meant to write a book, or I'm meant to, it's like your
Right.
purpose has very little often to do with like what you actually do in the world, and much to do with like who you are, who you are as a person in the world. I heard this like beautiful interview with Liz Gilbert one time, and she was like, I think she was talking about having a dream, and she was like, I had this dream where I was walking down the street in Santa Monica. Oh no, it actually happened. She was walking down the street in Santa Monica, and she saw this guy like changing the letters on a whatever that thing's called, the like thing
The
where you put the
billboard.
letters for the theater. Yeah,
Oh, oh,
so like
a
it doesn't matter.
marquee.
Yeah, the marquee, or like he's painting, whatever. He's at the top of a ladder, and
Okay.
she walks over and he doesn't notice her, but she holds the ladder because she has like all this early trauma with her dad and ladders. And so she walks over and holds the ladder for him while he's like finishing doing whatever he's doing. And then she peels off and walks away as he's coming back down. And she had this thought where she was like, what if my whole purpose from being on this planet was to like be in sector B6 or whatever and like hold this guy's ladder so he didn't fall so he could go on and like do something
Mhm.
amazing. Like, and it stuck with me
I love that.
so much because it was like, yes, like we have no idea the ripples that we have, that like one sentence that we say to someone sends them on a completely different trajectory. Or some people have like gates in their human design that it's like just being in their aura can set someone off on a completely different path. Like we just don't know. And we tend to get in this like energy of what am I supposed to do and how am I supposed to do the thing that I'm supposed to be doing, and like what if I miss the boat and I don't do the thing, and like what's my direction, and we just get so stressed about it. And there's so much that we can learn in human design and astrology, but like one of the things I love about human design is like if you follow your strategy and your authority, you're going to end up mostly on the right trajectory. There's other things that like if you honor it, it makes it a little bit easier because it's hard for us to decondition from our mind, but it doesn't have to be so. I think we are in a time when we think we have to figure everything out, and we have to like achieve this like homogenized, mass curated idea of success that's like so much bullshit. Like
Yeah.
I have clients come to me all the time. They're like, but my family is like immigrated and everybody thinks I should be a doctor. And like they've got cancer on their 10th house. And like that's not what they're here. It's not what
Yeah.
they're here to do. It's not what's important to them. And that like just if you have cancer in your 10th house, I want to say it could be like depending on other factors. But I'm just saying there are so many examples of people who like the way that they're meant to be quote unquote successful is very different from this idea that we have. And like you said, I think it's going to be changing drastically, like the way that society looks and how we move through society and what that looks like and how we feel successful and like being resourced to thrive instead of just survive and all of those things. But for me, success is, I mean, mainly it's feeling really good in your body, being happy, and like aligning with the journey that your personal soul came here to have, rather than like what everybody else is telling you you should be doing and like comparing yourself to everybody else and like getting your fucking Instagram algorithm right or whatever it is. All the BS that's out there right now. Um, and I really hope we are going in the direction I think we're going, because I think it's going to take so much pressure off of that. And people are going to be able to step back and be like, you know, I grew up with that phrase, like, what if you could do, like, people said it all the time, like, what if you could take money out of the equation? You could just do anything. Like, what would you do? And it's like, well, but I can't. So I need to like focus on these things that I need to be doing. But like, I think there's no more powerful time to be asking that question. Like, what if you could take it out of the equation? Like, what if things shifted to a much easier pathway and you could actually step back and be like, who do I want to be? Really? Like, what's important to me and like what lights me up and like what gave my inner child pleasure and would give my inner child pleasure now? And like, how can I be? We all have like an emotional theme in human design, like mine is satisfaction. Like, how can I exist in satisfaction more often than not? Those are the things I think we should be thinking about. Like, am I connected to people that I love? And do I feel that connection? And like, what does my ideal day look like? And how close am I to that? Like those kinds of questions for me are what success is about, rather than like the number in your bank account or your fame or the car you drive or any of that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really do see that as like moving into the version of the Aquarian age that I really see of becoming like much a much broader view, much more focused on community and groups and like us being this drop in this bucket, right? We're seeing we've also talked about this in a few other ways, but it's like celebrity and like gurus and sort of like these people at the top are it's changing. It's really changing. Like we're seeing it crumble, we're seeing it fall. And I think that my hope also is that what comes from that is this much more like communal way of being and thinking about and not being so obsessed with the individual and also just it's very hard to imagine when you're here on earth, but as you were saying, like our purpose really is kind of just to move through this human experience to me with like the most grace and learning that we can. And really just like thinking about the history of humans on Earth, like we're this little drop in this very long evolutionary, fascinating, wild progression. And it's very hard to hold that when we're like so obsessed with the material realm, which also makes sense. This is where we live. It is real. We do need
It
money,
is real.
food,
And I
and
do,
and
yes.
I don't
Sorry.
think that we should be living in caves and like foregoing comfort and beauty in any way, shape, or form. I'm very for that. I just think there's a way of doing it that we haven't yet experienced.
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely think like I'm not one of these people that's like, you know, has a bad relationship with money. Money's just energy. Like it used to be goats and apples or whatever we exchange. And whatever we're going to exchange in the future is fine with me too. But I don't like separate um the like success piece from resourcing. I think we all deserve to be abundantly resourced. So that's part of it for sure. And if that part of that for that person is to have the fancy car because they love it, because it like really lights them on fire, not because they're trying to prove something or cover something up or, you know, what's it, keep up with the Joneses or whatever that is. If it's because they really love it, then that's different.
Totally. And some people do have like those very sort of like external lavish things that make sense in all of their different charts. You're like, okay, for you, maybe.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. I'm really excited. I think there's really there are really good things that are already happening and coming in the ways that we all can kind of move and integrate into ourselves more deeply. And also, yeah, I mean, my wish for everyone is just to be able to do the work that their soul came here to do in this life. Like that's it, right? And being able to be in a society that just supports that and the basics are covered would be an absolute dream. And
Hmm.
I hope we move toward that, even as things feel a little chaotic right now. Yeah.
Same.
Well, thank you so much. Is there anything that you would like to add or touch on that we didn't get to that you feel like coincides with these conversations?
I don't think so. I loved this conversation, though. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you. And how can people find you? I think you've touched on your work in a few different ways, but I would love for you to share more because you do a lot of amazing things.
Yeah, you can find me at barneyandflow.com. You can find me on Instagram at barneyandflow. Those are like my main two. I did that redefining success workshop is still like the replay is available for free. So if anyone wants to grab that, it's through the link in my bio on Instagram.
It's a really good one. Yeah, I loved that.
Yeah, that's a great way to like get into my world and like anyone on my newsletter list um gets access to their free energy type workshop. It comes in your first nourish. It's not just like just because there's so many things where people just like push the button, they take the thing, bow out. I'd like for you to at least get like one email and be like, this is for me or not for me. So the link to it is at the bottom of my newsletter every month, as well as actually the Redefining Success replay. So that's if you sign up for my newsletter, that's a way to get access to both. And
Mm,
people seem to like it. So
yeah.
uh, yeah,
Nice.
those are the main ways.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. Very grateful.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I guess well.